Welcome back to Wake Up America. The Kyle Rittenhouse trial drawing to a close with uncertainty going into deliberation. So here to discuss what to expect from the verdict and also to break down some of the charges and confusion over them. We have esteemed trial lawyer and co-host of the Reasonable Doubt podcast with Adam Carolla. That's Mark Geragos. Mark, good morning to you.
Good morning and happy birthday.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. A lot to dive into, Mark. A lot happened yesterday, got a lot of people talking, but let's start out with really what Kyle Rittenhouse was charged with. Can you explain what we can expect from these charges?
Well, the one thing he's not charged with, in a move that surprised even me, the judge dismissed the gun charge, which
right.
I thought that was one of the things that he faced some exposure on, even though it was not exactly, it's a misdemeanor, not one of these serious felonies. The others that he has to face, as you've got them listed up here, all involve the death or the deaths and the attempted. And so what the jury is going to have to do is they're going to have to determine what his mental state is. One of the reasons why the defense in the opening statement said you'll hear from him, not the least of which is because when you have a self-defense case, the only way you can prove or rebut your affirmative defense, which is self-defense, that I was scared, I was in fear for my life, basically, is to have the words uttered by the person who's accused, Kyle Rittenhouse, which is why he was put on the stand. There's been commentary about maybe the media is misreading this, that they're in the courtroom, they thought they were losing. No, this is a fairly common tactic in a case where you're facing potentially life sentences. You need to give the judge the ability to give you the jury instructions. And that leads us, Rachel, to the next, I hope, question of yours. How does the jury understand this stuff? They spent, apparently, if you believe the judge, over the weekend, between them, defense, prosecution, and the judge were emailing back and forth with detailed revisions to the jury instructions. That gets read to the jury. I've often wondered how 12 people with presumably no legal education can ever make heads or tails out of this, right? And that's what they're going to struggle with. That's why I do not think this will be a quick verdict, meaning 3 hours or so, because there's multiple charges. They're going to have to, one of the things that's a given is we have 2 deaths and we have somebody else who was injured. So you kind of take those elements off the board. Then they focus in on what is the state of mind and how does the law define it.
I think you make an interesting point about how confusing this can all be. And anyone who's ever had jury duty or even been called for jury duty has some insight. But again, without that law degree and law education, it's very difficult. I do want to point out one of the big moments yesterday, though, during the closing arguments. It was this: when the prosecuting district attorney pointed the same gun that Rittenhouse used in the courtroom. We can see there in this image, he has his finger on the trigger. What did you think of this move, Mark?
Well, I don't mind. And I think most people who've worked in the system don't mind the theatrics of it. I mean, closing argument is designed to be an argument, and it's to have some theater to it. The problem with this is that he did have his the finger on the trigger. I know bailiffs or marshals who would have gone nuts if you did that in a courtroom. So I have seen, however, things that were equally as somewhat shocking in a courtroom, but you're supposed to. I mean, the law says closing argument is when the lawyer is allowed to go deep and wide, and that, I suppose, is exactly what happened here.
Yeah, but again, as you pointed out, the finger on the trigger, I think, is what startled so many people. Again, seeing an image speaks thousands of, 1,000 words. When people see that picture online, it's startling. Let me ask you, though, Mark, the jury is set to begin.
And by the way, Rachel,
yes,
they see that figure online, and the first thing they think about is the other case we've been talking about for the last 2 months.
That's what we saw online. So many people comparing this to what happened with Alec Baldwin on the movie set of Rust. Of course, there's no actual comparison to these 2 cases or these 2 situations, but many people saying this is what happens when you point guns at people. This is against firearm safety. Who knows what could have happened in that courtroom? Again, a lot of speculation, but just maybe not a good look. But let me ask you, jury set to begin deliberations 10 o'clock this morning. What do you think we should expect from their verdict?
I think you'll see them dig in on the instructions, and I believe that's going to take them a while. And when I say a while, I don't think you're going to see a quick guilty verdict in a couple of hours. I mean, that generally in the criminal justice system, state court system, that's generally what you see in cases like this. In this case, I think it hews more towards people being, even the judge expressed it yesterday, that he's very hesitant about having them wade into this legal morass and wishes that he could make the instructions a lot clearer. The problem with that is when judges start to mess around with the instructions, that's where if you get a conviction, they traditionally get reversed. They have what are called model instructions, and they're not always the model of clarity. And what do I expect? If there's not a verdict by Friday at around 3 o'clock local time, then I would expect a hung jury.
Okay, well, we will wait and see for that. Mark Geragos, thank you as always.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.